When Smith moved to Kirtland, Ohio in January 1831, he encountered a religious culture that included enthusiastic demonstrations of spiritual gifts, including fits and trances, rolling on the ground, and speaking in tongues. Smith tamed these outbursts by producing 2 revelations that brought the Kirtland congregation under his own authority. Rigdon's followers also had been practicing a form of communalism, and this Smith adopted, calling it the United Order. Smith had promised church elders that in Kirtland they would receive an endowment of heavenly power, and at the June 1831 General Conference, he introduced the greater authority of a high Melchizedek priesthood to the church hierarchy. Converts poured into Kirtland. By the summer of 1835, there were 1,500 to 2,000 Mormons in the vicinity, many expecting Smith to lead them shortly to the millennial kingdom. Though the mission to the Indians had been a failure, the missionaries sent on their way by a government Indian agent, Crowdery, reported that he had found the site of the New Jerusalem in Jackson County, Missouri. After Smith visited in July 1831, he agreed, pronouncing the frontier hamlet of Independence the center place of Zion. Nevertheless, Rigdon disapproved, and for most of the 1830s the church remained divided between the Ohio and Missouri. Smith continued to live in Ohio, but visited Missouri again in 1832 in order to prevent a rebellion of prominent church members, including Crowdery, who believed the church in Missouri was being neglected. Smith's trip was hastened by a mob of Ohio residents who were incensed over the United Order and Smith's political power. The mob beat Smith and Rigdon unconscious, tarred and feathered them, and left them for dead. In Jackson County, Missouri, residents resented the Mormon newcomers for both political and religious reasons. Tensions increased until July 1833, when non-Mormons forcibly evicted the Mormons and destroyed their property. Smith advised them to bear the violence patiently until they were attacked a 4th time, after which they could fight back. After armed bands exchanged fire and 1 Mormon and 2 non-Mormons were killed, the old settlers brutally expelled the Mormons from the country. Smith ended the communitarian experiment and changed the name of the church to the Church of Latter-day Saints before leading a small paramilitary expedition, later called Zion's Camp, to aid the Missouri Mormons. As a military endeavor, the expedition was a failure. The men were outnumbered and suffered from dissensions and a cholera outbreak. Nevertheless, Zion's Camp transformed Mormon leadership, and for many future church leaders came from among the participants. After the camp returned, Smith drew heavily from its participants to establish 5 governing bodies in the church, all originally of equal authority to check one another. Among those 5 groups was a quorum of 12 apostles. Smith gave a revelation saying that to redeem Zion, his followers would have to receive an endowment in the Kirtland Temple. And in March 1835, at the temple's dedication, many participants in the promised endowment saw visions of angels, spoke in tongues, and prophesied. Mormonism, Joseph Smith's profit game. Joseph Smith Jr. was a con artist and womanizer who invented a new religion he called Mormonism. As a prophet who contacted God through an angel prophet he called Moroni, Smith received the only true story of Jesus Christ on gold plates weighing 30 to 60 pounds, which remained hidden to everyone except Smith, who translated them from Reformed Egyptian, a language only Smith could understand, into English. He accomplished this by placing a special seer stone inside his hat, which allowed him to read the words on the plates to a neighbor through a curtain, who in turn wrote them down, since Smith allegedly could not read or write. According to the anonymous and secret account compiled into the Book of Mormon, Israel expatriates called Nephites and Lamanites fled Jerusalem and sailed the 5,000 miles from Jerusalem to Boston, and settled in the Americas along with the risen Jesus, who appeared among them later. According to the angel prophet Moroni, The Book of Mormon is the history of the Nephites and the Lamanites who conducted warfare and built cities across America, leaving behind no trace for archaeologists to verify they ever existed. The book, written in the style of the King James Bible, which Smith could or could not read depending on which source you believe, also describes the geography, plant, and animal life of pre-Columbian America, although none of the details can be verified by any archaeological evidence. According to Smith's dreams and visions, the angel Moroni was the last of a line of prophets and the son of Mormon, a prophet historian who recorded on thin metal plates a history of the Hebrews that settled in America from 2200 BC to 421 AD. Moroni was the guardian of these secret plates hidden in a secret cave and containing an historical account that was useless to anyone except Smith, who used it to exercise control over his gullible friends and neighbors. Mark Twain described Smith's fictional story as chloroform in print, which describes the difficulty the reader had in staying awake while trying to read it. Despite the fertile ground of religious fundamentalism and folklore magic among Smith's neighbors, the willingness to believe almost anything did not always work in Smith's favor. He was arrested several times and attacked by mobs for his bogus treasure hunting schemes and his claims to be a prophet of God. But that wasn't the end of Smith's problems. His closest friends in the church, Oliver Crowdery and Hiram Page, and other church members began to receive revelations from God also, which forced Smith to announce and officially document a new revelation that only he was the apostle and prophet who held the keys to the mysteries and revelations of the church. After this public declaration, Crowdery, Peter Whitmore, and others were sent away on a failed mission which was blocked by an Indian government agent to convince the Native Americans to accept Smith as their new spiritual leader. There are two ways to evaluate Smith and his claims. The first is to assume that Smith truly believes he is a receiver of revelations from a supernatural world of angels, saints, prophets, and ultimately a supreme being Smith called his God. In spite of all the personal failures and tragedies in his life, and the attempts to kill him by mobs of creditors, political enemies, and opposing religious fanatics, Smith remained true to his perceived role as a prophet. His eventual death at the hands of an angry mob merely split the newly formed Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or LDS, into three factions. The main group came under the leadership of Brigham Young, who moved his followers to Nebraska. Throughout his life, Smith had been portrayed by most newspaper editors as a religious fanatic, worshipped by a few and hated by many. Following several failures to find a career, Smith appears to have used his narcissistic imagination to attract worshippers, much like the historical characters L. Ron Hubbard, St. Paul of Tarsus, Mohammed, Jesus of Nazareth, David Koresh, Sun Myung Moon, David Berg, Moses, Isaiah, Shoko Asahara, Ervil LeBaron, Jeffrey Lundgren, Charles Manson, Fred Phelps, and Yahweh Ben Yahweh. Some of the characters were simply well-intentioned individuals who initially tried to reduce human suffering, but could not or would not tolerate criticism and could not resist the temptation to exploit their followers. Some wound up dead like the Jesus of Nazareth character in the Christian Bible, or in jail for tax evasion, rape of teenage girls, terrorism, and murder. What began as an altruistic impulse became an opportunity for wealth, power, and sex beyond a prophet's wildest dreams. The life and death of Joseph Smith is a good example of how intelligent, rational people can follow the lead of a charismatic person who offers the promise for a better life now or in the hereafter. Smith told his neighbors that he was friends with an angel from heaven, possessed exclusive secrets yet to be revealed, and golden plates with ancient writing that allegedly disappeared later after being witnessed by so-called reliable members of the church who did not even sign their own names to the document. Apparently, Smith decided it was time to let them in on our little secret, and if they wished to remain in the game, they had to agree to keep the deception secret until they died. I'm picturing the tobacco executives that agreed to lie before Congress about the addictive nature of tobacco. People lie to protect their own interests. Once upon a time there was a mysterious hill of Cumorah that opened to reveal a cave within, filled with stacks of engraved metal plates, with the angel Moroni standing guard. As also inside the cave was a stone chest, a breastplate, the sword of Laban, and the seer stone spectacles for translating Reformed Egyptian scripture recorded by a long line of Hebrew prophet historians who revealed the shocking truth that Native Americans are of Hebrew descent. Modern archaeological investigation has since revealed no cave, no artifacts, either on or under the Hill of Cumorah. The Hill of Cumorah is a pile of gravel formed long ago by a glacier in Manchester, New York.